Hello, everyone. I hope you're well. I suppose it's been a hell of a week. I'd ask you if you've had a good week, but none of us really have we? I know that every day I get up and I wonder what sort of horrors await me on the internet today. And every day seems to bring something a little worse than the day before. I thought I'd just share with you a couple of random observations. I've made a few scribbled notes, but it's like when I was a classroom English teacher, we used to call some of our preparation the three-step preparation method. You'd prepare in the last 3 steps it took to get through the classroom door in your head, and my speech is going to be a bit like that today. So, first of all, I want to tell you about a friend of mine, a guy named Rudy Hinnant. I lived in Japan for many years. I lived there for 15 years, and I knew a vibrant community of foreigners. And Rudy was an African American guy who was a friend of mine. He was a hilarious guy. He was a wonderful guy. He was a vibrant guy, and everyone loved Rudy. He called everyone "cuz." He'd go, "Hey, what's going on, cuz?" You know, and that's the way he greeted everybody all the time. And we drank a lot together. He was a musician. He played in bands in Nagoya, the city I lived in. And every year we'd take a trip to Osaka, and we'd get drunk and we'd walk through Shinsaibashi, and we'd just have a ball. And this guy was a wonderful guy. And last Sunday he went out with his friends for a birthday party. He went home and he died of a stroke. We know what he died of. He was the second person in that community to die post-vaccine. The first one died of a heart attack 2 weeks afterwards, and Rudy a couple of months afterwards. So I think Rudy would have got a kick out of the idea that some New Zealander in a obscure New Zealand town in the provinces was talking about him and telling a crowd of other New Zealanders what a wonderful guy Rudy was, because he really was. And I'm really honoured to have known him, and I'm really sad that he died the way he died. He should have had many more decades of life. I got a few notes. Right, so I've noticed in the last week that a lot of people are starting to get disheartened, and I feel it in myself as well. You know, I see it in Facebook posts that people are saying that they're starting to lose courage, they're starting to lose a sense of purpose, and everything seems a little hopeless now, you know, because things are moving so quickly, and finally we're in a period of our national history where apartheid has come upon us. You know, our society has been split like it's never really been split before, and we're finding ourselves, we're on the out, you know, we are on the out. I was quite amused yesterday. I got in touch with my vet over Facebook, and they said that I have to stay in the car park if I take my dog to the vet, but my dog can go in. So that's quite funny, isn't it? Because, you know, the dog has more rights than I have. The dog actually is treated with more dignity than me, which is no. You know, it's the irony needs to be pointed out, at least to these people, right? You know, if the dog has more rights than the person, you know, something's a little fundamentally askew, really. Now, not that, you know, dogs don't deserve rights. I love dogs, you know. Some of the best people I know are dogs. So the pressure is on us now, and I think, you know, it's worth asking ourselves or thinking a little bit about the nature of this pressure, right? Because if you can understand what's being done to us, intentionally done to us, then I think the emotional impact lessens. You know, through understanding comes a kind of freedom, you know. So I don't know if you know this, you probably do, but you know, all throughout the Western world, governments have instituted these things called nudge units, which are behavioural management units into their bureaucracy, right? And this is to manage the behaviour of the population. Now, this is kind of metamorphosed into metastasized might be metastasized might be the better word for it, into these sort of full-on sort of psychological warfare which is being waged on the people of the Western world, in fact, all over the world, I suppose. So, plainly, we are the victims of this psychological operation which is being waged against us, and there are several strategies that they're using. Now, human beings are social creatures. We need connection to survive, like we need food, like we need drink, you know. We need to connect with other human beings. back in the primitive times, when we lived in communities of probably about 100, 150 people, and the worst thing that could happen to any human being was to be cast out of your tribe, right? That was akin to death, and that is that kind of social death is what is being done to us now. You have to understand that this is intentional. This is being done by people who understand human psychology, and it's being done for the purpose of making us feel like our lives are in danger, right? It's intentional. A deep atavistic, primitive part of our minds responds to this with terror. Okay, and that's what they want, right? So that's one thing they're doing. Another thing they're doing, of course, is cutting us off from other human beings by masking us, by taking away the emotional information that we'd normally read on people's faces, by halving it at least, right? And so we can't see other people as human beings anymore, conveying subtle emotional, psychological information through our faces, right? So we're driven back into ourselves. We're alienated and isolated. And that's, once again, it's the idea of casting someone out of society to make them feel like they've lost connection and therefore that they've lost meaning in their lives. They take away our jobs because jobs are where we find meaning, right? There's a few other things. I can't remember what they are. I just have to look at my bit of paper. I mean, put my glasses on. Sure. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So another thing that's happening, and this is really kind of cunning, I think. This is the way they plant fear of the future in the news, right? Yeah. So this is something and it's usually recontextualized in kind of a clever way, but it's definitely a plant to make you feel scared for what might happen in the future. Now, one that I noticed this week was some prison up near Auckland, I think it was, some youth detention unit was being repurposed for quarantine, right? And the issue that they were pretending to discuss was that these young people would have to be put into mainstream prison, and they were scared. These poor young offenders, they were scared. So that was the recontextualization. What was really being planted there was the idea of prison, right? Yeah. So, think, you can interpret that any way you like. There's still 1 million New Zealanders that they would have to process in this prison, which probably got about 100 beds. So I wouldn't worry too much about it yet, right? But, that is a seed of fear that's been planted, and it's to make you scared of the future. It's to make you feel like you have no options, right? But you do have options. You've made choices so far, and you still have options. We all have options at the moment. Even if the worst was to come to worse, if the injection was to be mandated for the whole population, we'd still have options, and that would be to become criminals, but still to become noble criminals. Like Nelson Mandela was a noble criminal. He was put in prison. That's where if you hold on to your truth, sometimes you have to go to places you don't want to go, right? But if there's enough of us, if there's 1 million of us, there's a hell of a lot of people to process. There's a hell of a lot of people to send to Robben Island. You're going to need a big island for that. Soames Island won't do, I don't think. Yeah, I tell you what, we can have the North Island, they can have the South. That works for me. So I just want to, realise, everybody, I'm an English teacher. I'm a high school English teacher, and it's my job to look at this stuff and try to untangle it and explain what people are doing to other people through the use of language and imagery, right? And how rhetoric is cleverly used to plant ideas in people's minds. This is all intentional. Don't be a victim to it without at least understanding what's being done to you. Try to understand everything is intentional. Nothing is an accident now, right? These are very sophisticated people who've studied this, this for decades, and they know exactly what they're doing. So what I'd recommend for that we do is get off the fear porn. I can hardly talk. I've been on the fear porn all week, and I've scared the crap out of myself, quite frankly. But sit down and watch a movie on Netflix. I started watching Anchorman. That's the stupidest movie I've ever seen in my life. But I got a couple of laughs out of it. There's a few laughs. And for an hour or so, I felt like I was back in the old days, the pre-2021 days, and it felt really good, And I went to bed. I woke up feeling much better today. So do something like that. Get off the fear porn for a little while every day. Go for a walk. in the Esplanade. It's beautiful there. Sit down amongst, God's beautiful creation and absorb it, Get back to who you really are. You're not a creature who's supposed to be sitting inside looking at nasty stuff on the internet all day, telling yourself dark stories. Those dark stories, some of them are reportage, but some of them are planted there to make you feel very bad, and they work very well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
And last of all, be encouraged by the small victories. There are small victories occurring, legal victories in Belgium, for example, and in Britain as well, small legal victories. It seems to me that the whole world is waking up, that the narrative that is being promoted through the mainstream media is crumbling somewhat, The wheels are coming off it. Hundreds of thousands of people are marching on the streets of Europe and Australia in the last few weeks, right? I don't think people are buying this Omicron variant bullshit either, quite frankly. It's just not plausible anymore. So there is hope. And I think the Great Awakening is occurring. Not so much in New Zealand, unfortunately. But we will be the last ones. I think it won't be one here. It doesn't have to be one here. It can be one elsewhere, and we will feel the results of it here, hopefully. Yeah. Look at America, for example. They have that federal system, and federal judges have struck down the mandates, Biden's mandates in many states, right? So those are small victories, right? So people are being able to go about their lives without having to be mandated with the injection now in the states. It's really good news. It's really good news. Okay. And last of all, the last thing I want to say is, remember who you are. You're not really the victim that you're being positioned to be by the media, right? You are not the vermin, the plague-spreading vermin that you're being positioned by your government. Somewhat unbelievably, I still can't believe it's happening, but there you go. And they're going to promulgate that narrative. They're going to push it more and more over the coming weeks. But you are not that. I'll tell you what you are. You're the lucky ones. You're the lucky ones because you've chosen not to inject a poisonous substance, let's face it, into your veins, right? So you're still free of that. For now, we're all free of that, and I hope we can stay free of it forever. But you're not just the lucky ones, you're the valiant ones. Do you understand that? You're the courageous ones. You're the ones who stand between the vaccinated population, the normie population, and tyranny. You are all that remains between those 2 points now. You're the front line, as Ricky just said, yeah. Okay? So be encouraged, right? You have purpose, you have meaning. You are the lucky ones, you are the valiant ones, right? Okay. And try to go about your daily lives in a way that is nurturing to yourselves, right? I know it's hard at the moment because there's so much happening and it's like being in a dark room with a tiger. You want to know where the tiger is all the time, right? But there is still scope to be happy. There is still scope to reach back and become who we were before this nightmare started to unfold, right? And try to do a little bit of that every day. I know I'm trying to do it and having some success, right? That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.